Hey everybody, it's your boy TY checking in. Stone Muscle or TY of Stone Muscle, however you want to put it, however you want to place it. This series right here is going to be the last of Juvenile Delinquent. So this is Juvenile Delinquent Part 5, I believe. Once I came out of Glen Mills was a delinquent center, juvenile delinquent center. That was basically for hardened criminals. And like I said before, I was never locked up for anything or did anything other than skip school and smoke in the bathroom. So I don't want people to think that, you know what I mean, I was out there just committing all these great big crimes and stuff. But the reason this is going to be the last in a series of juvenile delinquent is because, excuse me again, sometimes I keep this TV on so loud. It's just give me a second. And I also forgot my drink. So, all right. Being a juvenile delinquent in Montgomery County, Pennsylvania, for a young black man wasn't hard to do. You could have just been labeled as a bad kid and threw some rocks at a house or something like that, or threw some rocks at a car or something. It just wasn't hard to get in trouble in that county. And like I said before, I have no one to blame but myself because there was a bunch of kids at the time who didn't do anything to put themselves in the situation that I did. Now, once I got out of Glen Mills, I was 18 years old. And like I said before in my previous videos, I was into selling drugs. So I really don't like talking about that because it's just something that I don't want kids to pick up on or anything like that. But I want them to know my story. I want them to know my story because, you know, people could probably think that you were a murderer or, you know, that or you burglarize things and stuff like that. And not to say that selling drugs was it's a crime, you know. So if you do wrong, you're going to get put into a place where they lock you away so you could try to learn your lesson. So you could try to learn your lesson. But I think being in those facilities probably just make you think of how to be smarter at what you do instead of rehabilitating. So when I came home from Glen Mills, 1987, April 1st, 1987, a friend of mine who I talked about him previously in the juvenile delinquent centers came up to me after I was working at a job. I had a job and I was working and saving up pretty good money so I could afford my first car and stuff. And it was it was working fine for me. So he came to me and said, "Yo, let's go to this town. I know some guy who will give us something if we come over here and back over to our town and make the money off of it and what have you." So we did that. I drove over there. We went to this guy's basement and He gave us this package, and we did what we had to do. And right on from that day, that night that we went back, that same night that we went back, we sold out of everything that we had. Now you have to remember, this is 1987. And 1987 was the rise of the crack cocaine era, and it just boomed. It just took off on a fast pace to you just wouldn't believe. So on from that day on, I was hooked and I was tied into that lifestyle. So my juvenile delinquency was no longer because I was 18 years old. I was over 18. I was working at this job, and I think I was about 19 going into 20 years old. I think I was 19. So with the money rolling in the way that it did, I still kept my job, but at nighttime I was creeping off to do this thing and realized how much money that it was bringing me, and but wasn't thinking about the consequences. I wasn't thinking about the consequences of, if you get caught with this is no longer you going to a juvenile center. This was going to be a graduation, or the next step into you doing jail time, me doing jail time. So I didn't take that into consideration. I always thought that I thought that whatever came to me was just going to happen, or was just supposed to happen. And the next thing you know, I get caught up into what I was doing. Now I'm going to the penitentiary. I didn't go to the county. The county jail was where was being sent to, but for some reason, I had bypassed that, never did any county time, and went straight to the penitentiary. Now, at this time, it was November 28th or November 27th of 1990 that I got sent away. And I'll never forget going down into the bullpen after the judge sentenced me and said, "You're going to do 15 to 5, which meant 15 months to 5 years." And when I went downstairs, it was a separation. It was a separation. This side right here, the right side, was going to the county. The people on the left side were going upstate. There was a friend of mine in the right side, and the guard said, "Wait a minute." He said, "You're going over here to this side, to the left side." And I said, "To the left side?" I said, "The left side's going to the penitentiary. I'm only 20 years old. This is my first offense." I said, "What's going on?" And I'll never forget my friend saying to me, because I had that look, I was 20 years old. They were going to send me to a jail system that I knew I wasn't ready for. He looked at me and he seen the fear in my eyes and how scared I was. I'm not holding nothing back, man. I'm not going to sit there and make it seem like, "Oh yeah, I'm big and bad. Wherever you send me is where you send me." No, it wasn't like that. He said, "Ty," he said, "you're going to be all right. You're going to be all right, man." He said, just do what you got to do. Keep to yourself." And what he said to me, that keep to yourself thing, for some reason stuck with me. And when I went upstate and went for that bus ride, something told me, "Okay, Ty, this is what you got to do in order to survive in here." So basically, this video and the next video which is going to be 1990 going into 1991, is basically about how to do time if you're not prepared for it, because this is what I did. So I'm up there, I'm down in the state penitentiary bullpen, and I just remember everybody just being so comfortable, just talking about what they did and on the streets and what was going on in the streets and all that. And I just sat there on the far end and just kept to myself. I said, I'm going to keep to myself. I'm going to ride this out, but I'm going to keep to myself. I'm not going to let them into my world. And believe it or not, me staying to myself prevented me from getting into any altercations with anybody. That first sentence, that very first sentence, from 1990 to 91, they let me go in March of 1992. So it was like a 15 months. When my 15 months came up, I got out. But to all the young men out there who are going to be faced with doing hard time, doing penitentiary time, because if you asked anybody, Greatest Penitentiary was no place for a 20-year-old suburban kid who all I did was skip class, throw some firecrackers on somebody's lawn, and got caught smoking weed in the bathroom. That was no place for me to be. So, but me keeping to myself, like I said, avoided me from getting in any altercations. And I also had my own mind. I didn't, I wasn't easily influenced, or should I say, at that time, I wasn't influenced because when I was younger and being a 14-year juvenile, I was influenced because I thought it was cool to get in trouble or do certain things because I heard of what people were doing out on the streets, and they were known as badasses. And I was just like, you know what? I was like, being a badass probably isn't, it's probably, it sounds like it's pretty cool. I used to hear these stories from my cousins talking about Cowboy and what he did, and to get put in the situations that he got put in, and that stuck in my mind. But anyway, let me get back to the penitentiary, and when I was in there, my first sentence. So stay to yourself, read, don't listen to the stories that are being told up there and get enticed by doing these things when you come home. Because these stories were the stories that they were telling sounded like movies, like King of New York, New Jack City movies. Like I said, it was 1987, 88, 89, 1990, and 91. And all the guys that were coming in there were talking about a drug gang called JBM. It was Junior Black Mafia. And I'm going to tell you about that story, not the JBM, because I didn't know those guys. And that story has nothing to do with me. But I was locked up with a gentleman who was going against them and wind up being, I would never know that this man was the guy who was fighting it out with a major drug gang. So That story's later on down the line. But I'm here to tell you that this is what's going to happen when you are a juvenile and then you grow into still having the life of crime on your mind. This is what's going to happen. This is what's going to happen. It's being a juvenile and not getting that out of your mind, not getting out of your system is going to give you a one-way ticket to the penitentiary. And that's what it did. That's what happened to me. So I'm going to continue on with these stories. I got a lot more to tell. I got maybe about 10 more stories to tell before I get into my actual video of why I named my site Stone Muscle and why my clothing line will be Stone Muscle. So let me go ahead and close this out, because every time that I get on here, I always want to keep it very short to about 8 to 10 minutes, but I wind up getting wrapped into talking about something that I hope is important enough that gets through these young men and young ladies. Like I said, white, black, Puerto Rican, Indian, I don't care what race you are. I'm trying to relay a message to all the youth out there because I don't want them to follow in the path that I went through. Skipping school, smoking weed behind the building and the gymnasium, and and just doing things that you weren't supposed to. And I was kind of known as like a bad guy anyway, because of the people that I hung around when I was younger. So um, people already had in their head that this was what was going to happen to me. And that is what happened to me. So they knew what was going to happen, and they weren't wrong in it. I wish they were. I wish I could have looked at them and like they were crazy, but I never did, because everything that they predicted came to light. But I'm glad that through all those times, I did 3 penitentiary bids. I went up there 3 times. So all of the 90s, all of the 1990s, I missed out on a lot of fun in my 20s. And that goes by real fast. So you don't want to get caught up in that cycle of keep doing time over and over again. All right, so I'm going to close this out and give some more insight onto what is going to cause you to go from being a juvenile to graduate, or not graduating, going into the penitentiary or the jail system. If you don't get out your mind, if you don't get it out your mind that I can do right, I should do right, I should have listened to my parents, I would have listened to my parents, I'm going to listen to my parents, my school teachers, my counselors, my principals, my aunts and uncles. So have a good one. I'm going to make another video shortly after this. Sometimes my system is a little backed up because I think it takes a while to download, so I can't usually put it up right away. But as soon as it downloads and goes through the system, I'm going to put up another one right after this one, if I can. All right. So with this 20-minute video that I thought was going to wind up being about 8 to 10 minutes, I'm going to say peace. Take care. See you soon.